Moll Cutpurse, London's notorious pickpocket, fence, and gender rebel. Picture the streets of 17th century London, a city teeming with thieves, merchants, actors, and aristocrats, where danger lurks in every shadowed alley and opportunity hides behind every mask. Among the city's most notorious figures was a woman who defied every rule of her age. Moll Cutpurse, born Mary Frith. She was a pickpocket, a fence, a public performer, and perhaps the most flamboyant gender rebel in English history. Her legend blurs truth and myth, but one thing is certain. Moll Cutpurse lived as she pleased, and London would never forget her. The making of a legend. Mary Frith was born around 1584, in a London that was fast becoming the beating heart of England. Her family was respectable enough, her father a shoemaker, but young Mary would grow up to scorn respectability at every turn. The city itself was her playground and her proving ground, a place where a bold spirit could carve out a name, if not always an honest living. From childhood, Mary was different. She shunned the world of women, needlework, piety, and submission for the rough and tumble life of the streets. She was said to have run away from home repeatedly, preferring the company of beggars, actors, and thieves to the quiet of her parents' house. By her teens, Mary was already making a name as a pickpocket. She was quick-fingered, witty, and utterly fearless. But it wasn't just her criminal skills that set her apart. Mary dressed in men's clothing, doublets, breeches, boots, and even a sword at her side. In a city obsessed with order and hierarchy, she was chaos personified. Second, Moll Cutpurse, the Queen of Thieves. Mary's criminal career blossomed in the underworld of London. She became known as Moll Cutpurse, Moll being a slang term for a woman of loose morals, and Cutpurse the name for a pickpocket. Her reputation grew not only for her skill, but also for her audacity. Moll worked the bustling markets, crowded theaters, and rowdy taverns of the city, slipping purses and deftly filching valuables. But she wasn't content to remain a mere pickpocket. She moved up the criminal ladder, becoming a fence, a broker who bought and sold stolen goods, acting as the middlewoman between thieves and buyers. Her home in Fleet Street became infamous as a den where the city's stolen treasures changed hands. Moll was said to be so respected and feared in the criminal community that no major theft in London went ahead without her knowledge or her cut. Third, a scandalous life on stage and off. Moll Cutpurse's fame soon reached beyond the criminal world. She became a celebrity, notorious for her outrageous defiance of gender norms. She swaggered through the streets in men's attire, smoked a pipe, still rare for women, and drank openly in public houses. She swore, gambled, and carried a sword, behaviors that shocked polite society but delighted the London masses. Her exploits inspired plays and pamphlets. In 1611, the playwrights Thomas Dekker and Thomas Middleton debuted The Roaring Girl, a comedy based on Moll's life, at the Fortune Theatre. Mary herself attended a performance, dressed in full male regalia, and reportedly jumped on stage to dance and play the lute, to the astonishment and amusement of the crowd. Not content with being portrayed, Moll became a performer in her own right. She gave public concerts, sang bawdy ballads, and even performed at the notorious Fortune Theatre. Her performances were as much about spectacle as music. She reveled in the outrage she provoked. 4. Brushes with the law. Moll Cutpurse's daring did not go unnoticed by the authorities. She was arrested numerous times for theft, fencing, and, most scandalously, for notorious and professed cross-dressing. In 1612, she was hauled before the courts and forced to perform public penance at St. Paul's Cross, wearing a white sheet and repenting her evil living. But even punishment became a stage for Moll's defiance. According to legend, she turned her penance into a mockery, singing, joking, and winning over the crowd. The authorities could not tame her, and the people loved her for it. Moll's knack for survival was legendary. She was jailed several times, but always managed to talk her way out, pay off the right people, or simply charm her jailers. She was rumored to have informants throughout the city, and even to have bribed officials to look the other way. The gender rebel in a man's world. What set Moll Cutpurse apart from other criminals was her open challenge to gender roles. At a time when women were expected to be silent, obedient, and invisible, Moll was anything but. She wore men's clothes not just for convenience, but as a declaration of independence. Her cross-dressing was so notorious that in 1612, Parliament passed a law specifically targeting women who dressed as men, a measure widely believed to have been inspired by Moll's antics. She mocked the law and its enforcers, declaring that she dressed as she liked and would never be ruled by a petticoat. Moll's gender defiance extended to her love life. She never married, spurning the institution as chains for fools. Rumors swirled that she had affairs with both men and women, though, as with much of her life, it's hard to separate fact from scandalous story. Her very existence was a rebellion. She forced Londoners to confront their own fears and fascinations about women's power, sexuality, and independence. 6. The later years. The legend grows. As Moll aged, her legend only grew. She became a fixture of London folklore, a figure both admired and feared. She continued to fence stolen goods and run her criminal enterprise, but also grew wealthy enough to buy property and invest in legitimate businesses. According to some sources, she even acted as a private detective, helping wealthy clients recover stolen goods, for a fee, of course. Her knowledge of the city's underworld was unrivaled, and her network spanned from the poorest alleyways to the highest echelons of society. Moll Cutpurse died in 1659, wealthy and remarkably respected. She left behind a will, unusual for a woman of her background, and was buried in St. Bride's Church, Fleet Street. Her funeral reportedly drew a crowd as diverse and unruly as her life. 7th, Moll Cutpurse in legend and history. The line between truth and legend in Moll's story is as blurry as a foggy London alley. Later writers turned her into a near-mythic figure, a Robin Hood for the underworld, a proto-feminist, and a symbol of defiance. Plays, pamphlets, and ballads kept her memory alive for centuries. In modern times, Moll Cutpurse has been reclaimed as an icon by LGBTQ+ historians and feminists who see her as a pioneer in challenging gender norms. Her story is told in novels, academic works, and even in drag performances. Yet Moll was more than just a symbol. She was a survivor, an entrepreneur, and a woman who bent the world to her will. Her life was scandalous, yes, but it was also brave and brilliantly lived. Conclusion: the enduring spirit of Moll Cutpurse. Moll Cutpurse's story is one of transformation, of a shoemaker's daughter who became London's most notorious thief, a woman who wore men's clothes and lived by her own rules. She was a criminal, a performer, a gender rebel, and a legend. Her life reminds us that history isn't just made by kings and queens, but by those who dare to break the mold. Moll Cutpurse walked the streets of London centuries ago, but her spirit, the spirit of boldness, defiance, and self-invention, still echoes in every alley and on every stage. In a world too often eager to punish difference, Moll Cutpurse made her difference her strength, and London, for all its laws and judgments, could never quite catch her.